Right, shalom, shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praise, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahweh Shai, Bahashim, Rachak Wadash. Double honors to the elder apostles, the elder bishops, the elders of Great Millstone who very well, very beautifully. Double salutations be unto the Akim, out here pushing his gospel and truth and his sincerity to the best of their ability, given to them by Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahweh Shai. Peace, blessings, and salutations be unto the elect scattered abroad. May the election of Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahweh Shai, Lord willing, fall upon your houses. This is the brother Quana Wath coming back at you, Lord will, with the edifying lesson through the spirit and power of Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahweh Shai, Bahashim, Rachak Wadash. Lord will, it is edifying. Lord will, it is straight to the point. And as you see right here, this is a picture I had taken of, an energy drink called yerba mate or yerba madre, which I'm not advocating or getting paid for the energy drink or anything like that. It just that's an energy drink of choice because it's more organic, better for you than these traditional high caffeinated energy drinks out there, Monster, Red Bull, so on and so forth, right? This is a better choice. But nonetheless, right, as I had got it and I was drinking it, headed back to, home from the plantation, I was looking at, stopped at a light and I started looking at it and I seen this right here come to life, and it just kind of hit right through the spirit, right, that the scriptures, just like this energy drink, right, when you're ultimately tired, you're low, low energy, able, you get an energy drink, and it ultimately picks you back up. Well, that's the same thing, that's the same thing, hey, when we're, because we're in this world, right, we're always, we're dealing with the, being in the plantation, dealing with these people out in the world, dealing with, being, in this truth and suffering and going through the different afflictions, right, it can weigh, on our spirit, man, it can get us low in the spirit. It can make us feel, like you ain't got energy, right? Low energy, Hey, but when you get into the scriptures, when you ultimately, you start to study, right? Or whether you're, watching the video and it's brothers bringing out, heavy precepts, right? You're getting edified through the spirit. Hey, what does it do? It gives you that energy, right? You get that life, back into you, man. You, as it says right here, you come to life, through the scriptures, right? Which is the scriptures, which I have it pulled up right here. It says right here, Sirach 19 and verse 19, it says the knowledge of the commandments of the Lord Yahweh by Shemiel Shai is the doctrine of life. Also tells you, that that these words are, Yahweh Shai said what, right? Because he comes in the volume of the book. So when you ultimately, you read, the scriptures and get that wisdom, knowledge, and understanding, right? You're ultimately, supping with Yahweh Shai through the spirit. Yahweh Shai said what? He's the way, the truth, and the life. So we ultimately get life, right, from the scriptures, right? Going back to, Ezekiel, the 37th chapter, if I'm not mistaken, right? Going into the, the dry bones, we were dead, right? Spiritually dead, right? And we're given life through these scriptures, right? And when you go into that word life, which I have it pulled up, right? It says a life. It says, I'll start right here. Yeah, it says animated corporal existence, lifetime period between birth and death, the history of an individual from birth to death, blah, blah, blah. It says condition of being a living thing, right? Opposite of death, spiritual existence imparted by the Most High through Yahweh Shai to the believers, right? We ultimately got, life, right, through Yahweh Shai. But when you drop down, it says right here, right? It says a sense, right? Sense of vitality, energy in action, right? Gives us energy, right? Brings us back to life. Again, when you going through the motions of, being in this world, right? On top of, being in this, being in this truth, right? Which is, already, it's heavy, right? Because again, we're appointed unto sufferings, as Apostle Paul said in was that First Thessalonians, you know, First Thessalonians 3:3, if I'm not mistaken. But it tells you that we're appointed unto sufferings, man, right? So we're constantly going through it, right? Whether it be physical ailments, right? Whether it be, like you being sick or, actually being injured, right? Whether you're going through mental ailments, right? Whether we're going through, dealing with demons and shit like that, or you actually, just, dealing with external, external things, right? Dealing, at work or at home, dealing with the family or whatever it may be, right? We're constantly going through it, man. And those things, again, right, can ultimately suck the energy out of us, But when we get into these scriptures, it's like that life, comes back into us, right? We get that energy back, because this is ultimately our power, our power, right? Yahweh Ba'Shem Al Shai is our power, our power source. Let me grab this. Let me find out. I was thinking about this, kind of just came to my mind and came to my spirit. It was a Wisdom of Solomon, the 7th chapter, if I'm not mistaken. Oh, it's right there on the tip of my tongue, man. Let me get this Wisdom of Solomon 7. Let me find it, man. So like, I got it right here. This is Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 8 and verse. I'll start at verse 7. The point being verse 9. Verse 7, it says, "And if a man love righteousness, her labors," that her speaking about wisdom, right? "Her labors are virtues, for she teacheth temperance and prudence, justice and fortitude, which are such things as men can have nothing more profitable in their life. If a man desire much experience, she knoweth things of old, and conjectureth aright what is to come. She knoweth the subtlety of speeches, and can expound dark sentences. She foreseeth signs and wonders, and the events of seasons and times. Therefore I purpose to take her to me to live with me, knowing that she would be a counselor of good things and a comfort in cares and grief." So again, right, as we get into the scriptures, we ultimately, we get that comfort, right? We get that, that energy back, man. You're tired, you feel drained, you might feel stressed out, you might feel, depressed, But see, hey, we do what? We get into the scriptures and we read and get fed, and get comforted, right? That brings that energy, that life back into us, man. Which is why it's so important for us to stay in the scriptures, as much as possible. Because this word is our energy source. This wisdom, knowledge, and understanding, right? Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahweh Shai is our energy source, man. Yeah, again, carnally, right? We get, we have these, these energy drinks and whatnot, right? That ultimately, they might, give us energy, but in reality, man, you can still. There's been times where I've drinking, energy drink and still felt down, still felt tired, still felt, me, because that's not the actual fix, man. Right? That's not going to solve the problem. Solving the problem is getting into the scriptures, man. Returning to Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahweh Shai, repenting, and getting into the scriptures, right? Which is going to give us that true energy, right? It's gonna truly alleviate, our spirits, man. Again, this is why we have to stay in the scriptures as much as possible, man. It says it's a comfort in cares and griefs. When you're low in the spirit, right? When you ultimately, you're feeling just low, period. Feeling stressed out, right? Feeling, overwhelmed. Go to the scriptures, man. You feel drained, you feel exhausted. You go to the scriptures, right? You be around the brothers. And what happens? Hey, the Lord ultimately, you feel better, right? And brothers, are have testimonies of that. You know, might have, gone through a whole day being at the plantation, man, being stressed out, you know. And then what happens, right? Brothers, will hear a video or read a few chapters, a couple chapters, single chapter, whatever it may be, and or be around the bros and just feel way better, man. You know, feel like you done took, drank couple energy drinks, you know. You just feel better, man. Right? Which again, this truth, right? This is our life source, our energy source, man. Stay in the scriptures as much as possible, man. But this was, just something that was, I just kind of, extrapolated through the spirit, man. Lord will, was edifying. Lord will, straight to the point. I want to give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh. Bahashim, Yahweh Shah, Bahashim, Rachak Wadash, double honor to the elder apostles, the elder bishops, the elders of the great millstone. Till next time, I say shalom.